What is going on, YouTube people? Neo Cards and Comics here, back to back gem rate video days. That is right. Yesterday, I ended up just dropping the December video late yesterday evening or early evening on the old East Coast time. I was going to put that out today and do the yearly numbers, but I just figured let's just double up. Gem rate on Tuesday evening dropped the year in review for grading. 17 million pieces of cardboard with men, women, Spider-Men, Char-Lizards, Pikachus, the whole 9 yards were taken by companies and encased in pieces of plastic with a number put on the corner that we will all pay extra money for, and people will go to war for in comments on Facebook, YouTube videos, Instagram, Discords, Twitter/X for whatever company they are aligned with, much like a presidential candidate. Oh, too soon. It is 2024, an election year. 17 million cards graded is absolutely insane. Let's run through these really quickly and then kind of talk a little more in depth on some of this stuff. Total items for PSA, 13.5 million. 1.7 for CGC, 1.2 million for SGC, 772,000 for Beckett. So Beckett was the only company of the big four not to crack 1 million cards graded. Now you see that change versus 2022. Up 21%, up 8, up 29, up 3%. Beckett barely up year over year. Let's dig a little bit deeper on that, shall we? Because that does not show us the whole picture. So though grading overall was up, it was up 19% according to GemRate as a whole across all the companies from 22 to 23. It wasn't on the sports card side of things that carried the water. Here is the sports card numbers year over year. PSA down 2%, so basically flat. SGC up 25%. I would expect to see that as SGC massively ramped up capacity this year. And they've also run a ton of pricing specials with $9 baseball. More on that in a little bit. Beckett down 25% and CGC down 56% in sports cards. This is just sports cards. So if most of these companies are trending down, but the overall numbers are way up, where is that coming from? TCG. PSA up 66% year over year in Char-Lizards. CGC up 58% in Beta Black Lotuses. Beckett up 60% in One Piece things. I don't know anything from One Piece. And SGC up 84% in Spider-Man cards. I mean, just absolutely wild TCG and non-sports numbers. This has really been the trend the entire year, that TCG and non-sports has really kind of taken over the grading space across all the companies. The big standout one here for me is the SGC number, and it is, what does this number look like in a year? Because they really made it a point of focus. It's obviously a massive area of weakness for them prior to this year. And they rolled out some pricing specials and have gotten more aggressive in marketing on that side of the fence. I'll be curious to see how that pays off as we move throughout 2024 and what the year over year numbers look like next year. I'm also curious in general how these TCG numbers hold up. A lot of this is, let's be honest, Pokemon. And based off what I can tell, the Scarlet and Violet era have not been as popular as the Sword and Shield era. So, and I don't play in this space from a singles perspective. I'm not ripping packs. I'm not buying and selling these cards. So maybe someone in the comments can enlighten me. But the wax does not seem as popular. The sets are not moving as quickly. So I'd have to assume that means they're getting ripped less, which means they're getting sent in for grading less. It seems like Pokemon is slowing down slightly, but that's from a semi-outside perspective looking in. So maybe I'm completely wrong on that. But any disruption in the TCG marketplace could really hurt these companies' growth year over year, because it is clear, though SGC is up with their increased capacity, it does seem like sports card grading is slowing down. And I think that could be contributed to a number of factors. One, I have to believe people are starting to get smarter about what they send in. We did a video on this, about a month or so ago, I think, when it was like the whole PSA 9, SGC 9, CGC 9, a 9 graded card versus Raw. In a lot of cases, Raw was outselling it. And in a lot of cases, when we researched for that, there was less, or I'm sorry, there was a lot of cards selling for at or less than what the grading fees are. You know, people get excited and they send these base cards in, or lower level players. And by the time you get them back, even with SGC, some of this stuff just does not make sense to be grading. And I just feel like people are going to learn that lesson over and over and over again. Like, there's only so many times you're going to punch yourself in the face and be like, wait, why am I doing this? Let me just stop doing this. I'm sending this card in, I'm paying, let's just say $15 to grade it at whatever company you want, and I'm getting it back and I'm selling it for $16 or $20 and a 10. What am I really doing here after selling fees? And then heaven forbid I get a 9. So I feel like people are going to start to smarten up on that. Single prices continue to stabilize in the sports card side of things. Wax continues to get or stay extremely expensive. So I think, and this is something, I heard Gemrite talk about this on, I think it was Denny's Cards podcast, and it's something we've discussed as well. Though I think 2023 might be the year of peak profitability, not necessarily peak volume. I could see maybe them doing more volume in 2024, but what I have a sneaking suspicion is going to happen in 2024, and I'll expand upon this a little bit in a 2024 preview video that I still need to record. I have a feeling 2024 is going to be the year of the grading price war. And I could see these companies having to compete for business, and price, I think, is going to become a major factor, because if prices get cheaper, it makes sense to send more cards in. Real rocket scientist stuff there, I know. But if these companies compete on price to get more cards in the door, the overall grading number will look better, but their profit margins are also going to look worse. I'm sure they are still just going to do fine. PSA grading 13.5 million cards in a year, I have to imagine turns out to be quite profitable. Also, peeking ahead, I would imagine, in fact, I don't think this is much of a stretch, SGC, if I had to predict for 2024, will end up in that number 2 slot pretty securely over CGC and Beckett. I think CGC and Beckett will continue to battle it out for third place in regards to volume. CGC is probably going to get more cards. Beckett is probably going to continue to get more valuable cards. So it just kind of depends on what those two companies want to grade. Here is the grades by category breakdown. You can kind of see here, PSA dominates the TCG space for them. And then basketball and football are pretty evenly split, with baseball getting a little bit of a multiplier. SGC has the least amount of strength in the NBA market or the basketball market. Pretty good in football, but does really, really well in baseball. This is not surprising, given the $9 specials that they have run throughout the year with new Topps releases. I would also be curious to know, and there's really no way to know this for sure, how many extra cards did they get because of that $9 pricing? I have to imagine that drove a decent amount of that baseball business to their door. So I don't want to say, that number is artificially inflated or anything like that, but it is just something to keep in mind that SGC had substantially cheaper baseball pricing for pretty much every new release out the door throughout 2023. Beckett, strong in basketball, not surprising. Pretty okay in baseball. They are much more evenly distributed between the three major sports. Same with CGC, with them trailing in basketball, baseball leading the way slightly over football, and then basketball down a little bit further. And then they obviously do really, really well in the TCG category. Market share, just absolutely wild numbers for PSA as they completely dominate everybody else. And then you see the other companies there. This is the overall gem rate. I'm not going to pay too much attention to this. SGCs is always going to be naturally lower because they get a lot more vintage than the other companies. To me, this is the better one to look at. This breaks it down by era, so you could see, compare apples to apples. PSA on the sports card side of things comes in at 48%. Beckett at 39%. I'm a little surprised by that. SGC at 42% overall for the year, and CGC at 31% overall for the year. We talked about this in last night's video. For whatever reason, CGC seems to be grading sports or either tougher or they are just getting worse cards submitted to them. That part seems like a stretch. I don't know if they're just grading a little harsher or what the deal is, but a 32% gem rate on Ultra Modern seems kind of wild. On the TCG side of things, they're coming in at 62%, SGC at 50%, Beckett at a near 80%, and PSA at a near 70%. So even on the TCG side of things, they are grading a little more harsh compared to the other ones, though SGC seems to be the leader in the clubhouse when it comes to strictness on grading. An additional note here, this was something I was kind of tracking throughout the early part of the year. This is not on Gem Rates data, but I asked them to pull the numbers. SGC had 82 gold labels in 2023. That is down from 320 gold labels in 2022, which seems like a very big drop off. I mean, 82 gold labels out of, what did they grade? How many millions of cards? 1.7 million, 1.2 million cards. Only 88, or I'm sorry, only 82 got a gold label. And that seems off pace from their previous year of 320. Not like 320 was a lot, but that's still a pretty big decrease. Beckett, in regards to black labels, in 2023, they had almost 16,000 versus just under 5,000 in 2022. And most of that comes from TCG, as TCG has a decent shot at getting a black label. That's a pretty big jump in black labels for Beckett. I am surprised to see the number that high, but it could just boil down to them seeing more TCG volume this past year, kind of skewing things that direction. Absolutely crazy numbers. 17 million. Whew. Whew. That is just so many freaking cards hitting the market. And then another 17 million will probably hit this year. I guess they don't all hit the market. A lot of people actually, contrary to popular belief, a lot of people actually do grade cards and keep them for themselves. Not all of them hit the open market. All I got for you boys and girls today. Absolutely wild times out there. Give me your best grading prediction for 2024, and we'll catch you boys and girls on the next one. Peace.